The Zathrin emergency beacon pulsed through the debris field, a desperate cry that had traveled 3 light-years before reaching the nearest Coalition vessel. Captain James Reeves stood on the bridge of the Meridian, studying the distress signal with practiced concern. Zathrin were meticulous creatures, insectoid beings whose civilization prided itself on preparation and protocol. For them to send a distress call meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. "How long until we reach them?" James asked. 14 minutes, Captain," his navigator responded. James glanced at Orla Mackenzie, the human engineer who'd transferred to his crew 6 months ago. She was already pulling on her EVA suit, moving with that peculiar human efficiency that never failed to unsettle the other species aboard. "Mackenzie, we don't know what we're walking into yet." "Which is exactly why I'm getting ready, sir." Orla's green eyes flashed with something between amusement and determination. "The Zathrin don't panic. If they're calling for help, people are dying." The Zathrin vessel, Harmony of Preparation, hung broken in space, its hull breached in 17 locations. By the time the rescue team boarded, the situation was worse than anyone had anticipated. A cascade failure in the life support systems, fires in 3 decks, and worst of all, the survival pods, each meticulously stocked with 47 essential items according to Zathrin emergency protocols, had been destroyed in the initial explosion. Commander Zixthal, his chitinous plates dulled with stress, approached James with trembling antennae. "Captain Reeves, we have 37 crew members trapped in the lower engineering section. The route is compromised. Fire, no oxygen, structural collapse imminent. Our emergency protocols require—" "How long do they have?" Orla interrupted, stepping forward. Zixthal's compound eyes fixed on her. 14 minutes. Perhaps 15. But you don't understand, human. The path requires full survival equipment. Our protocols specify 47 items necessary for such a rescue. We lost all our pods. We have nothing." Orla pulled a knife from her belt, a worn, multi-tool blade that had seen years of use. "I have this." The silence that followed was profound. "That is 1 item," Zixthal said slowly, as if explaining basic mathematics to a child. "The protocol requires 47. We need oxygen recyclers, thermal protection, structural stabilizers, medical supplies, communication arrays. I'll make it work." Orla was already moving toward the damaged section. "Mackenzie, wait." James started, but she was gone, disappearing into the smoke-filled corridor with nothing but her EVA suit and that damned knife. Zixthal turned to James, antennae quivering with distress. "Your crew member is going to die. 1 tool cannot substitute for 47. It is mathematically, logically impossible." James had worked with humans long enough to know better than to bet against them. "Commander, you've never seen what humans consider making it work." Orla moved through the darkness with her suit's headlamp cutting through the smoke. The knife wasn't just a knife. It was a pry bar when she needed to force open a jammed hatch. It was a hammer when she had to break through a weakened wall panel. She used it to strip wiring, creating a makeshift electrical bypass to open a sealed door. When fire blocked her path, she didn't have a fire suppression system. Instead, she used the knife to puncture a coolant line, redirecting the spray to create a path through the flames. The metal grew hot in her hand, but she wrapped it in torn fabric from her suit's utility pocket and kept moving. No oxygen recycler? She found emergency oxygen canisters scattered from the explosion and used the knife's screwdriver attachment to jury-rig them into a continuous supply line, pushing them ahead of her through the corridor. No communication array. She tapped the knife's metal blade against exposed pipes, creating rhythmic patterns, Morse code, that ancient human system, to let the trapped crew know someone was coming. The structural collapse started as she neared the engineering section. Metal groaned and buckled. Zixthal's voice crackled through her suit radio, urging her to retreat. She ignored him. Instead, she wedged the knife into a failing support beam and twisted, using leverage and her body weight to hold back several tons of collapsing ceiling just long enough to slip through. She found the Zathrin crew huddled in the dark, their chitinous bodies pressed together in fear. 37 pairs of compound eyes turned to her, reflecting her headlamp like stars. "All right," Orla said, retrieving her knife from the beam with a grunt. "We're leaving. Stay close, stay calm, and do exactly what I tell you." The journey back was harder. Orla used the knife to mark their path, scraping arrows into metal. She used it to test floor panels for stability, to cut through tangled cables, to wedge open doors that tried to close. When one Zathrin stumbled and their leg caught in twisted metal, she used the knife to carefully pry them free. 12 minutes after she'd entered, Orla emerged from the smoke, leading 37 Zathrin crew members to safety. Her Eva suit was scorched and torn. The knife in her hand was blackened, its blade chipped and bent, but everyone was alive. Zixthal stared at her, antennae completely still, a Zathrin expression of profound shock. You had one tool. Protocol requires 47. How did you? Orla wiped the soot from her face and held up the damaged knife. This wasn't one tool, Commander. Depending on how you use it, it's a dozen different things. Add a human who knows how to improvise? She smiled. That covers the other 36 pretty well. James approached, relief and amusement mixing in his expression. Mackenzie, you just invalidated about 3,000 years of Zathrin safety protocols. Sir, with respect, their protocols are for people who follow protocols. Orla tucked the battered knife back into her belt. Humans don't have the luxury of 47 specialized tools for every situation. We have whatever's in our pocket and the ability to make it enough. Zixthal's antennae began to move again, twitching with what James had learned to recognize as deep contemplation. We spend decades planning for every contingency, creating protocols for each possibility. But you humans, you simply adapt. That's what we do, Orla said simply. The universe doesn't care about our protocols. It throws problems at us and we solve them with whatever we have. Sometimes that's advanced technology. Sometimes it's a knife and stubbornness. Later, as the Meridian prepared to tow the damaged Zathrin vessel to the nearest station, Zixthal approached James privately. Captain, I must revise my species' assessment of humanity. We believed you were reckless and unprepared. We were wrong. You are not unprepared, you simply prepared differently. You don't carry 47 items. You carry 1 or 2 and the knowledge to make them into 100. James smiled. Commander, if you ever want to terrify yourself, ask Orla what else she can do with that knife. I've seen her use it to repair a quantum drive. In her quarters, Orla sat cleaning her knife, carefully working oil into the damaged blade. It had been her grandfather's and his father's before that. 3 generations of Mackenzies had carried this tool through impossible situations and made it enough. She held it up to the light, admiring the chipped edge and the scorched handle. Yeah, she murmured to herself with a slight smile. This should cover it.